What's up? Good afternoon, good evening. What time is it? It's late. It's dark outside. I'm all messed up. It's 8 o'clock though. It
Eight
is kind of
o'clock.
late. It's late. And it's a Monday. We are doing our final review for Lovecraft Country. This is episode 10, full circle. Imani, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
How was your weekend? How
I
was Sunday? How was Sunday? What was going on?
I went to a wedding. Lots of social distancing, lots of mask wearing. The entire event was outside. It was
Mm-hmm,
beautiful,
mm-hmm.
and I froze myself to death. But I was a little smart. I wore a pantsuit instead of a dress, and I think that was a great decision because I froze if I was in a dress.
That was a great choice. Smart choice.
Yes,
Smart choice.
yes.
Yes. So it is finally here. Everyone, we have seen it. The final episode, Lovecraft Country for season one. Season one could possibly get a season two based off of.
With that ending, we better get a season 2.
They left it open ended enough to where it's a possibility. You know what I'm saying? It's a possibility.
Nah,
I've got my
I think
hopes.
they set some stuff up.
They set some stuff up for the universe, and we're gonna talk about that. We'll get into that later in this episode. But let's start at the top. Are you ready to get into this?
Let's get into it.
Man, so we open up. We got D. The whole gang is here. We're all
That was the
rushing.
jacked up arm.
Man, hey, what's that? What was that scene in Scary Movie? What was that Scary Movie? Was that 2?
Oh, with the hand. Yeah.
When he put the hand in the mac and cheese.
You know what's crazy? That's not even these hands.
But that's what you just did. That's what you just did.
He had like 3 fingers.
Oh man. Hey, we got a special guest joining us in the few right now. Hold on. Hey, stop the band, stop the show, ladies and gentlemen. Lou is here joining us tonight on a very special episode, on the final season of season 1, or final episode in season 1 of Lovecraft Country. Sir, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right.
How's your weekend? How's your week going? Good to see you, by the way.
Appreciate it. It's a Monday, so there's that. But the weekend
is
cool.
Man. Bro, do you know how like much energy I had to manifest prior to coming on so I could be like in a certain mood? Imani told me a funny story behind the scenes, but we won't get into that. So that kind of helped a little bit. But trying to get up the energy after a Monday is like,
I can tell you later, Lou. I got you. You need to know it too.
Yeah, Lou's here. Ma, what's good? What's going on? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
Yeah, no. So we're just getting ready to get into it. We're getting ready to talk about the opening scene. We hadn't talked about anything related to the show yet. So yeah, and we're also going to do like a review of the overall season. We're going to talk about that too after we do our episode review. But so opening scene, we got the gang is all back together. They're rushing D up to the room, to her bedroom. They got the book of names. They put it on the little dresser right beside the bed. Everyone's gathered around, and all of a sudden, who gets do they hand take the letter?
Atticus starts reading the prayer or the
spell, but spell. I think it like doesn't it like fly across the room to his hand, or somebody hand it to him? It doesn't matter. I can't.
Somebody handed it to him. The book flew open after he started
reading it. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he opens it up. He starts reading it. Book opens up, and him and Lady pass out. Boom, cold, right there on the floor. And then we go into the other world with
what would we call that? Because that wouldn't really call it.
They call it that. So they called it on the podcast. The cast were calling it the Ancestral Plane, which I think is
Ancestral Plane. Interesting.
Right. I think that's appropriate.
I think like that.
Super fascinating, because then I think of like the Jalia, which is the Ancestral Plane of Wakanda, and how different it is.
Yeah, right.
And then you start thinking, "What's up, Mama Coop?" Then you start thinking about like why it would manifest different, and it's so interesting that as descendants of slaves, the Ancestral Plane will reflect the world they know, and it doesn't look like Wakanda and trees and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, and and it made sense as to why it was burning after her explanation as to why it was on fire. It kind of makes sense because it's kind of like it is a double entendre, like because it is based on the well. Do we want to jump? Can I jump ahead to the end a little bit? Because when they reveal it's the well, I don't know. Nah, never mind.
I mean, the whole episode is gonna be spoiler heavy, so
it is. But like, okay, so you know how at the end when they basically strip magic away from white people, and it is the slave master's home, and the home is burning, and it's basically the white world burning all around her, and that's why it was burning. Like that's what I took from that moment. The ancestral plane, like this, that's kind of how I interpret it.
I took the whole flame rage thing she was saying, especially when she like copped some fire in her hand and was like, the flames are here because I was consumed by my rage.
Yeah.
And anger, but like if you can control it, you can do some good with it. Doing a lot of good with that fire.
I got that too. I got that vibe too. And it's like, to your point, if it's the world that they know, the world she knew, and it's burning, like that's where I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. Like at the end, I made that connection to it, to the plantation home burning down.
I like the fact that the rage was generational, even though she had passed that rage to her granddaughter, and then to Dora, who was the grandmother from Tulsa. That was her granddaughter. Even though they may not have known her and known her rage directly, they inherited it and had it within their own versions of the ancestral plane as well. And I thought that was dope. Well, I mean, rage, I don't know if that's...
I was about to say, wait, did you just say you didn't like that?
The idea that it was passed down and that
it's inherited because the rage comes from a trauma. It's like you inherit trauma even if you don't experience it directly, which is like Tick's whole life.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
His dad treated him that way because he was trying to teach him about the world by re-inflicting the same traumas he experienced.
Yeah, yeah.
And on his mom's side, he had the inherited anger and secrecy of all the magic. So like his whole life has been, let's raise a kid, but also let's throw all our trauma at him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even if you don't, like, even in the situation or an instance where it's not directly like passed down, like you still your parents or whoever experienced it, you still live in the shadow of it. So it still affects you. Like it affects you in some way. And it may not be like in a direct way, but it's a shadow that looms over them. So therefore it's cast on you as well. And even if they try their best to kind of sort of suppress it and to make sure it doesn't dominate their life and your life, it still is there. It's not, you can't avoid it. You can't ignore it. Like it's still going to affect you in some way.
Right.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, where Letty is told that Hattie was trying to protect them by binding magic, and they told Letty, don't bind it. You're going to have to use it. Don't be afraid of magic, which is great because in a way it's also like a reclaiming because as we find out, the magic didn't come from white people. They stole it. They actually say that when what's his name? Titus comes back using a hard R left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes, boy. I was
with his whole chest.
Whole chest. His whole
and he went straight to Christina.
Yo, which probably hurt for him because he's like, pass it to the sons of Adam, but I will let my great granddaughter have it before I let one of them Negroes have it.
Exactly. Like all of that all of a sudden went out because it's like this is the worst. It's the worst possible outcome for him. Like there's the possibility of Christina or women getting it, white women to inherit this power, but beyond that, it's the whole idea that Black people re-inherit this power and rediscover it. Like that's the ultimate like fear. And you see that, like to your point, you see that manifest in this episode. And like, is it because of the blood tie that they have that he knew how to appear before her? Like, how did he end up in the street, like right in front of her? I said, because that's the only thing.
Only blood relative left, right?
Yeah, that's what my assumption was. I don't know if they
Yeah.
explained that on the podcast, Lou.
Nope, they did not.
Yeah, I think
But
that was implied.
You know what I didn't consider this whole time? Christina and Atticus are essentially like cousins, right?
Yeah, they distant cousins.
Yeah. I don't know why that just popped in my head this whole time. But it be your own family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use family loosely in that sense.
Oh, we're gonna use family loosely today.
Oh yeah, because we did have some some family drama.
Can we get into it?
Go ahead, let's get into it.
Man, forget Ruby. But don't use that F word, use a different one.
All I'm saying is Ruby took an L because at the end of the day, she was going to ride for her sister. She just wasn't happy that her sister's still asking for crap.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say I'm about to give Ruby a lot of heat, and before I get into that, I need to start by saying Letty is a horrible sister, a very selfish individual, and she has caused a lot of stress and problems in her family, and it's not talked about enough. She has only used her sister this entire show. I don't think she's shown her any genuine affection. She's shown her any love. Just all around a bad sister, and I see Ruby as the older sister that, after their family died or whatever, had to, care for Letty and had to, even while mom was alive, was responsible for Letty. And, there's this ideal that older siblings have to sacrifice opportunities sometimes so that, the younger siblings can thrive. I've seen that in both of my grandmothers who come from large families. But that being said, Letty ain't ish. Ruby is a coon. Those are separate issues. Ruby did not have to coon. She chose to. This is the demise of Ruby. She became a white woman and chose to get a job. Right there, I was like, I don't know what's up with that, because that would not have been my first move. Now, yes, she may have used her white woman power just a droplet one time when she was working at that department store. I'm glad she did it, but I don't think it was enough. And I don't think she went into the job thinking, oh, I'm a black woman in a white body. Let me see what good I can do here. She just wanted to work at the department store. That's all she was going there for. She wanted to be around the clothes and she wanted to be in control. The second time she lost me, which it went even further downhill, was when after Emmett Till after his funeral, Dee is still missing, and she chose to go to William and have white sex. And that's what I'm gonna call it, because she was white while she was doing it. So we're just gonna call it white sex. It wasn't even interracial sex, it was white sex. That's what she chose to do. Dee is still missing. Nobody even knows what's happening to Dee. This is a terrible day for Dee to be missing. And what does she do? That. Boom. In my opinion, Ruby died when she told Christina that she could do whatever she needed to do with the rest of them, but she had to leave Letty alone. I saw that as, Massa, you can do whatever you want to do with them other black folk. Leave my sister be, and I'll do whatever you need me to do. That's what I saw. That's all I got from that. And
my question is, was Ruby really close with anybody else?
Nope.
No.
And she proved that. She proved that throughout the whole episode. I mean, throughout the whole season, really. Like, the only person she seemed to even have a connection with or relationship with was Letty. And that seemed to be by design.
I think also she was, in a way, like, you can do whatever you want with Dee. Dee was just a kid. She literally didn't say anything about Dee at that moment. She was just like, just leave my sister alone. You can do whatever you want to do with the rest of the black folk. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what she said.
That's exactly what she said.
Really what she, it's strongly, it it was, yeah, because she said that directly, and that is what it's implying. Like she understands that um the potential is there for Christina to kill all of them, and instead of saying like, nah, I'm gonna ride with my folks, she's like, nah, I don't care what you do, just don't touch my sister. And it's kind of like, all right, if you haven't bought into her selling out by that point, you had to have by then, because that was just, that was ridiculous.
And I never, some people were like, oh, she's really gonna, get close to Christina so that she could, try to betray her. That's not what that was. That
I don't think that's what that was.
I'm
either.
enjoying.
Nah, it was the other way around.
Yeah, I'm enjoying being white, and I'm gonna go do that with you. Peace out,
yeah,
Negroes.
Yeah, I've always saw it as the other way around. Like Christina was the one that was really, and I think it was initially that Christina saw her vulnerability and was using that to exploit her, but then ended up catching feelings in her way. Because I don't think she anticipated having there being a bond between her and Ruby as the season progressed. Like I think that was something that just happened organically. I think that she kind of sort of began to understand Ruby's frustrations. And then from that, there's some relatability for her with Ruby. But I never thought that Ruby was the one manipulating Christina and was going to ever do anything for the rest of the group.
She chose whatever side she thought was going to make her life more comfortable.
Yeah, and going back a little bit, I feel like they kind of missed an opportunity to explore colorism a little bit more in the series, especially with the hiring of the black girl in the store, because I still believe that in that time period they would have found like the lightest skinned chick that they could have found to work at that department store.
I think he chose her because he liked her and he wanted to get close to her. And he was willing to risk how the store looked because he wanted her.
But that's what what I'm saying is in that time period, like brown paper bag test would have been real. Like
they explicitly discuss it in episode 1 when Letty was like, she was thinking about maybe staying at your place, get a job at the department store.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh yeah, they would hire you, have a better chance than me because you all light skin.
Right. And then like it would have been cool. I think not cool, but I think it would have been more believable if the girl that was working in the store was light skinned and maybe kind of sort of looked like Letty. And then that would have kind of sort of made her reaction a little bit more believable. Because she foreshadows it with Letty, and then to go to the department store, get the interview, and then see that
more personally, like when it is a brown girl, because you were so paralyzed to fear to apply.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if she was light, not to say that she wouldn't have been bothered, but her problem was they hired a black girl who looks like me. That was her beef. Because
I can see that.
There were already plus size white women working at the store. So it was more so I didn't apply and she got it. And then she was
so she's taking it. Yeah. She's taking it out more or less on herself. Like she's mad at herself more so than she is at the girl, because they are, to your point, they're similar in look and build.
I'm also convinced that the manager of the store, he only hired that girl because he wanted her sexually. Because remember,
absolutely.
Although Ruby is eons smarter than her, technically, I don't even think the girl was qualified if she was white. They not got the job, but she didn't have anything. And I truly believe that the only reason why she was there is because that man wanted her.
Easily, because they all was sleeping with him, all the other ones.
Well, how about?
I don't know.
But, I don't remember that. They were?
They implied it because she says to the other girls, has manager ever made a move on y'all? And they're like, yeah, it's part of the job. Yeah. Hey, you think you could take us slumming? We saw you talking to the Negro employee. Let's go to the hood.
Dang. Where was I gonna go? Lou, can you talk about what they said on the podcast about Christina having to kill Ruby and what
And Christina's super twisted logic.
Yes, because I thought about it some more, and I definitely think that makes sense. So yeah.
It makes sense if you got to tell yourself something to get by.
Well,
But it's still kind of trash
tell what
logic.
they said, and then I'll explain why it's believable now.
So the Letty, Christina, inhabiting Ruby's bodies fight. Christina took it very personally, and she was personally mad at Letty because she felt that it is Letty's fault that she had to kill Christina because Letty keeps asking for these favors, and Ruby ultimately obliges. And if Letty didn't continually ask for favors, it would never gotten to the point where Ruby was in direct conflict with her goals. So she had to kill someone. She felt whatever type of weird I'm gonna be immortal and you gonna die love because Letty kept asking for favors.
So this is more so about the kind of love that Christina felt for Ruby. It was more of an ownership, not as much slave and slave master, but I mean, you see it all the time on TV. You know, man kills his wife after the divorce, or just man kills his wife, or you know, one lover kills the other because if I can't have you, no one will. So basically, if Letty is going to continue to, you know, distract you from me and I can't have you the way I want you, then you got to go. But I'm not going to blame myself or you. I'm going to blame that thing that's keeping us apart. But I was able to relate that and what you put in the Discord to the if I can't have you, no one can ideal. So I still think it's crazy and jacked up.
It's not, but it's the same logic that Ruby applied when she tried to explain why she went to Christina's house after Emmett Till's death. It's the same logic.
Say more words.
Yeah. It's the same thought process, same structure, but it's like from the opposite perspective. It's from Christina's perspective instead of Ruby's perspective. And on top of that, it shows you why those two got along, because they are basically the same type of person.
Incredibly in a way, just selfish.
Yeah, like that's why that connection was there in the first place, because I think in that moment that sort of strengthened to the bond between Christina, even though she called Ruby on her BS. Like the reason why she was able to see through it is because it's like she would have said the same thing in that circumstance. And she did when she was explaining to Letty why she killed Ruby. Because it's like that your explanation makes no sense whatsoever. Makes sense to you, but as far as the world logic, that's insane.
I still don't have any sympathy for Ruby though. That's what happens.
It
happens with the white man. And then
what was that? Somebody did you see the meme on social with like it's kind of dark, but it had Tupac getting in the car before he went off to Vegas, and it was a side by side with Ruby getting in the car with Christina.
Basically,
I was like, yeah, I saw that. I was like, dang, that's dark, but that's true.
I can't.
That's basically what happened.
I can't help but compare Ruby and Christina to like Black Republicans. Like, just because you know, say you love this person so much and you're willing to do whatever does not mean they actually care about you. They're using you. And the moment you turn on them, your ass is grass. Excuse my language. That's how I couldn't help but see a difference in that. So that's why I don't have as much sympathy for Ruby. I do appreciate that she attempted to help her sister, but she could have helped her sister a long time ago by not choosing Christina in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
I feel like my sympathies for Ruby come from Christina, because I feel like the reason she fell for Christina is because Christina is the only person over the entire course of the show that asked her what she wanted to do. So like she
Facts.
got to be selfish, and it wasn't a space afforded to her before.
I
Um,
agree 100%. Not and that it's not a justifier. It's just because of that reason. I to lose point. I understand
yeah,
why
so
she
there's
chose that
sympathies.
path. Like
Yeah,
I can understand from her perspective why Christina was a good option, but it's not a justifier.
Yes. I agree with that completely. I see why it happened, but that
Yeah.
does not make it okay.
Yeah, because I totally the circumstances that led to that are believable, just not justifiable, like at all. Um,
But
yeah,
that's
then
what
that's
with manipulators. They know what to
yeah.
do and to say
All
against
of that
you.
I would
yeah,
agree
yeah,
with.
Like Christina knew exactly what to do to get Ruby, and Ruby fell right into her hands.
yeah. She found Ruby in a state of vulnerability, and she because she is a manipulator, she is a predator in this moment. Like she picks up on that weakness and exploits it. Like that's how that's what predators do. Like predators don't ever go after the strongest animal in the pack. They go after the weakest one because that's the one they can take down. And so not to say that Ruby is weak, but she was having a very weak moment. She caught her when she was vulnerable, and that's why she pounced.
Yeah. The night that William and her linked up, like met,
Yep.
that's probably the uh the worst off we'd seen her look. Like her
Yeah, and
hair
that's
wasn't
Yeah.
done, her
and for
makeup was messed up.
me,
She was
and then
singing the
what
blues.
that she was having some issues with Letty in that moment too. Like, cause what I forgot what happened. Um,
Um, at that point, Ruby didn't know that their mom didn't really leave him the money for that house.
Hmm.
And so at that point, Ruby was like, I was the one there all the time. Letty was gone, but you gave
right,
your light
right,
skinned
right.
daughter.
And I
Hmm.
think she had just lost the job opportunity too at the store. Like
Yeah.
all of that, all basically all her
Yeah,
world just
and she
came
found
crashing
out that he
down.
was a black person. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So which is why, like, for me, I'm like, I understand why she chose that path. It's not a justifiable reason to choose the path, but in the moment, I can totally see why she made that decision.
Yeah, so I've got sympathies. I don't think it was the right choice, but I've got sympathies.
Right.
I don't, but that's it.
Go to the comments. OG Coop, what's up? What's going on? What's going on?
What's going on?
This
You
is a good question. Do you
Do you
think
think Tia is free
Ja's
from her? Oh, you got it.
go ahead?
Wait, how did you pronounce her name?
I said
Gia.
Ja,
I
but
think.
Gia. I said Ja. Wow, Gia is free from her curse, or would she have to kill more people? That's a great question. Did they
She's not
explain that
free
on the
from her
podcast?
curse. She's not free from her curse. She didn't
Yeah,
technically kill Christina.
I don't think that counts as sex either, because
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think she considers her existence a curse anymore. And I feel
I
like
think
if
she's
she
accepted it, bro. Yeah,
right, and so if she were to kill a person and then revert to some other human, then she'd lose her memory. So it's almost like she can't kill another one and continue being who she is.
yeah, she's pulled a full Naruto.
She has accepted who she is, and she's gonna continue to be that for a while. And the witch doctor also told her, like, you are gonna be like this for a long time. So it's time for you to embrace the darkness and
She
get
was
what
like, "Oh, you think this is over?
yeah.
Psych!
You
Better
got
guess again."
you have a lifetime worth of lives to see. So yeah.
Yeah, lifetime of death to witness and to bear.
I
I
oh you go.
oh so like I appreciate how the episode 10 tick, especially after meeting his mom, was like a fully self-realized tick and the thing he was in the way of, which was letting people in, he actively went and did, and he was like, oh, what we saw was one possible future. Even though he was lying, I can come out of this alive if we work together as a family. He stressed family. Then he went to Gia and was like, hey, we've been through some stuff. We've seen some stuff. That shared trauma makes us family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay. It's almost like the goal of the first season was to make Tick's growth arc some him being worthy of somebody who would sacrifice himself for the people.
Yeah, yeah. I also think it's dope that his mom was the one who made or helped him realize that the sacrifice wasn't in vain and the value of the sacrifice. Like I thought that from a writing and from a story perspective was cool because um she was the voice of reason that inevitably when Uncle George died, he lost kind of sort of that voice of reason. Like he's been operating without it ever since Uncle George died. And so to kind of tie all of that together, having his mom be the one that gets him to understand that, I thought was a cool way to bring things full circle.
Yeah.
I would call it growth. I would say this is probably the most mature he's been throughout the season. Also, um, he absolutely went through traumatic experiences with his father and overseas. And this was the first episode where it seemed like he was not burdened by that. If anything, he was stronger because of it.
Right.
And although not to diminish his experience, but like I needed an episode where he didn't talk about getting beat, and we got one, even though he died in it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think and I think that's part of the cool thing with his mom being the one that did that helped him come to that realization, because it was necessary and um it was a good departure because she understands from where she is and what she's experienced. She understands what all has transpired and what he has to do better than anyone else that was in the living world. And
Also, shout
so,
out to moms asserting her romantic power in the 30s. Like, I had
facts.
two boyfriends that were brothers. What's good? I didn't really have a choice. I loved them both. That's what it was.
I
Yeah,
like that too.
yeah. And then she alluded to like really. It was like it was destiny. It was destiny. It was
Yeah,
like
she was like,
predetermined
all
for
our
her
souls are
to.
bonded.
Yeah, yeah. Which is foreshadowing because it's like you begin to realize that in this story, in this world, like there are no alternate realities. Like everything is set in stone, everything is predetermined. So everything has to happen as it was foretold.
I took it a little different. I feel like they have to, it's like not lack of free will, but so many influencer choices. Like if you're flowing down a river and you took a right at one tributary, this tributary only leads to one spot. So like you feel like you have a choice. Now, ultimately, you could say no, but like if you know yourself, you wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're caught in the current.
Yeah, because yes, Tick didn't want to die, but faced with the possibility of just taking magic from all the white folk, would he have made any other choice knowing who he is? Nah.
Yeah, it's
We
Montrose.
don't know.
I don't think it matters.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I think that's what we established in
That's
the previous episode was that the term was
Father isn't.
yeah, it doesn't yeah, it's kind of irrelevant in this regard because Montrose accepted the fact that all he ever wanted to be was Tick's father, and that's what he was. And so like both of them have to realize, both of them accepting that that is the case, even though Tick doesn't like how he was fathered, he does understand his understanding of Montrose, them coming to that equilibrium and understanding why Montrose is the way he is, kind of helped him accept Montrose as a father.
and then his mama saying he got the best parts of his father and his uncle.
Which
So
is that's to me that very true too. Like it took her to say that for him to accept it, I think.
yeah, and also this is like 1955, so there was no Maury Povich.
I was thinking that I was like,
To
dang, Maury could have made a killing. But shout out to
Yo,
their
that episode would have been wild.
This is
Yeah.
a little.
He definitely has. I would say he has Montrose temper for sure.
Oh yeah.
Which makes me like, I'm like, all right, nah, because that right there, George doesn't seem to have that temperament that Montrose has. So like, for that alone, I'm like, yeah, he probably is the father.
I never
The
got to
biological
discuss
father.
this on camera, but I felt bad for Hippolyta, especially after her episode, when you see how much she's capable of and what she gave up to be George's wife. But then in episode 2, when they were in the house and Christina was influencing these daydreams or nightmares, he didn't even dream about his wife. The love of his life was someone else. I was like, yo, you sacrificed, being a scholar or whatever. She could have been whatever she wanted for a man who ain't even gonna dream about her. I was hurt. Y'all didn't like I had this thought a couple weeks ago, and then I just never said it out loud. And last night made me think of it again. Like, Uncle George, like, Hippolyta deserves to do all the traveling she wants, because I was sad. But I'm happy that in other universes she gets to spend time with him and experience him and do things with him. But
yeah, what happens to that George when she drops that George back off? I was thinking about that.
When she drops,
was that in a reality? Because I thought that was just was that an alternate reality, or was that part of the whatever ethereal plane she was in? Like,
I took it as,
is he just alive in that
like Dr. Manhattan way? I'm feeling like she's existing in all of them. Like,
that's kind of sort of how I took it. Yeah.
So that was her. She didn't drop him off. That was her, and now she's back. That was the same her with Josephine Baker, and that was the same her as the leader of the Amazons. Also, I was a little bummed that we didn't get to see Beyonce in this. I was beyond
sad.
Oh,
big Afro. I was like, big Afro alien must be today. And we didn't get that at all.
Yeah. Oh, you never know. We could get it.
Yeah, because if they do continue this story, I feel like the only characters who still have open doors are Dee and Hippolyta.
Yeah, and the way they ended the episode with Dee, I'm like, yo, make Dee got to be the main character. She's like,
yo, she a savage.
She needs her own show.
What Cyclops' son?
Cable.
I'm blanking. Yeah, Cable. Like, I don't know. She was giving me Cable vibes. Because if she can go back and forth and like, if she gets that time traveling power,
because she's angry too.
Double shout out Imani for recognizing that last Shuggoth was black when we didn't see.
I told y'all.
Oh yeah.
Next to other ones.
Black. I told y'all.
Yeah.
Right, so I had my own little deep down theory that it was like somehow Uncle George and like his spirit was in there protecting his baby and his son and them, but I thought that was a stretch. But I did know that it was black because the other ones. Okay, the reason why I thought it was Uncle George was because in the first episode, they turned. So it was human first. And I don't think in episode 2, was it, when the cow gave birth? I didn't think it was the same monster. I thought it was a different kind, right?
Well, it was kind of covered in blood, so it was kind of...
It was like those dog things that they use the whistle on. Were those the same monster? Or were those
yeah, it's the same.
Oh, okay, then they. I'm a little confused on that. Never mind.
All right.
But I like the Uncle George spirit theory. That fits. Now they are family again.
That's what I thought. The moment he popped up, was that episode 7? When it popped up, or 8? That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, it's Uncle George. But
yeah, but Christine. Nah, I don't know. I don't know. Possibly the only reason that I kind of the Uncle George theory doesn't sit with me personally is because Christina gave him the spell.
I mean,
it's kind of like, if he found the spell and then it's like I would like, all right, maybe then it could be Uncle George possibly, but like the fact that Christina gave it to him, I feel like I don't know.
They are black though, and Uncle
What
George.
it does fit is the narrative that magic needs three things: a spell, a body, and intention.
Uncle George is
What's the body? Yeah.
I'm gonna tweet her and see if she responds. I'm gonna tweet her and see if she responds. Mrs. Cooper says, "Can you believe they left Dee in the car?" I was bothered at first, but then at the end of the episode, we find out that she already got her Winter Soldier arm. So technically,
y'all was right about that too.
She got what she needed.
But the what you call it was out there too. They left the black
Shigguth?
monster out there, the Shigguth.
I don't think they knew it was there, but in a way, I think
they did because it was there to protect Tick, and then like when they go through all the flashes, there's like an image of him and Dee both touching it, which was weird. And I was like, when did that happen? I guess it happened in between.
Dee touched it.
You know what?
Because I remember Letty and Tick outside.
Okay, maybe it was. Yeah.
You talking about the flashes when he had on the football jersey?
Yeah.
I have to watch that again because
I only watched it once, but that's what I thought I saw.
Yeah.
Possibly. I missed that.
I'll have to go back and watch it, but so many little things happened in that. Like I was trying to watch it and I couldn't. I think I want to watch it on like slow mo just to see every single frame of what went down there. But I do remember where like the ground was glowing, like in the basement of the house, and he had his hand over it.
Oh yeah. I remember that, and then you could hear it. You could hear it growling from under the floorboards. I remember that now. Yeah. Maybe that was a little bit of foreshadowing.
Did I mention before that I'm bummed that we only got to see Cthulhu once?
You mentioned it last week.
I just knew he was going to be all up and through the show.
I think you foreshadowed. I think on last week's show you said that you wanted to see Cthulhu again in this episode.
No, it didn't happen.
What were they doing with the salt in the field? Were they creating a perimeter for like maybe for this?
I think if they were able to trap Christina by luring her there when the moon was the highest, then they could have binded her there without Tick dying.
Okay. So I didn't know if that was like, all right, they were setting up like almost a defensive perimeter where the Shigguth could spawn, and then maybe they found a way for it to protect, because that is his cousin. Yeah. And I think they did say that it was to protect the family. So I guess it was just since they were all in the area, it was protecting everybody in the family. Because that wasn't his intention, to more to the point of the intention, like to protect himself and his family. So like if that is the case, if he wanted it to protect the family, then it makes sense why it was guarding Dee, because she was the one that was the most isolated.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Montrose. I can't help but think about him. Because I know we said that there's not much more room for growth, but I wouldn't be surprised if Montrose regresses, if he goes backwards, because he wanted so badly to keep his son alive, and he's gonna feel as though
I think that's why Tick wrote him the letter.
Yeah.
He could have wrote the letter to anybody. And he explicitly says, hey, you get a second chance now being a granddad to raise somebody with love and caring that wasn't afforded to me. And I think even if Montrose wants to, that's going to ring in his head.
No more, what was it, road rash from the last episode, from episode 9, the drink? I think it was road rash. He can't drink that no more.
No, yeah. But put it all away. Yeah, I could see that. I was thinking that they would possibly have the Montrose sacrifice himself to bring Tick back to life, but because I was kind of like conflicted at the end because I felt like for that reason they kind of robbed Montrose of a happy ending, because for him to make the ultimate, to me, before they started reading the letter, I was like, well, they kind of sort of let me down with his arc, because for him to make the ultimate sacrifice for his son, to me, would have solidified his arc. But for him to be there for his grandchild is better. That's a better alternative.
I think so too. I think we're just bummed that Tick really had to die.
Yeah. It's I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, I did find it mad poetic though, because at that point, like he eagerly ran toward death to save his people, while all he's ever done all his life is run from death to save himself. Oh, he ran to the military to protect himself from his father beating him all the time. He says to Gia, "If I denied it was real, I would deny that part where you saw my death." He almost dipped episode 3. The Florida, as soon as crap got hard, is like, hey. And then at the end, he's like, death is here. I need to die. And he even says to his mom, I don't want to die, but I've been running from death all my life. In the end, I'm going to choose it. Which it makes it great that it was an immortality spell, because ultimately what Christina was doing as a foil was running from death. Which, by the way, my mom's been calling Christina a devil the entire show. Like, my mom never had any ounce of sympathy for Christina. So as soon as Christina's dress turned red, my mom was like, told you she was a devil.
Satan!
Yeah.
Right there.
The fabric soaked that blood up. All right again.
I think her dress changed too. I want to say the dress changed. Like, that wasn't the same dress. Like, it soaked the blood up and like became another like dress entirely.
Yep, my mom was like, I told you I was a devil. Right there.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Yeah. That explanation too that you just gave, that added the poetry, the symmetry of his arc. I didn't see that, and I appreciate that, because that was good. Now as you point that out, I do have a greater appreciation for the ending now with that explanation.
We said that we felt like the only characters that really had room for growth were Hippolyta and Dee. But now that I think about it, I mean, they took magic away from white people, and Letty was told to use it and to embrace it. And I would like to see how they do that. And I don't think it's just going to be for her benefit. I would hope not.
No.
I think it should be used to help Black people. That should be the goal.
I agree. I think they can show up, most definitely, because they're still alive, even if they're not the focus. But
bruh, they can't
through space time.
They can't rob us of a black order of witches and wizards. Like, nah, man, I need that.
Dee hyper militant.
Yeah,
I'm hyped about.
She needs her own. Dee needs her own spin-off story.
I can't even trust my family,
bro. Like the robe. Yes, I need that.
Oh, shout out Afua Richardson getting a shout out. She's a comic artist. I've met her a couple of times. She's real cool people. So when she was like an artist named Afua taught me, and she also actually drew all the Erythia Blue stuff. I was like, oh,
word! I didn't know she drew that. That's awesome. I saw she had quote retweeted that screenshot of Hippolyta saying that, and it was like crying in tears, like real tears.
My mom loves Afua Richardson as an artist. Like, I took my mom to Comic-Con with me in 2017, and my mom bought like 2 magnets and a poster from her, and every year I go back to New York, she's like, was Afua there?
I thought I lost it. Never mind.
I also want to say, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Letty Lewis has the best horror instincts of all time. Facts. Letty don't miss.
Yeah, I think her only slip up from a horror standpoint was Tulsa when she was walking through the flames. Because other than that, I was like, yo, every time there was a moment and she needed to, like, she trusted her instincts, yo. Like I definitely applaud the writing for that because I was like, anytime she was in a tight situation, bro, she was coming through in the clutch.
I will say though, maybe Tulsa is just her doing the same thing because for once she knew she was safe. Once again, being selfish, not thinking about D, but she knew no harm could come to her, so she technically could take however long she felt like taking.
I
And that,
think, yeah, and I think really a lot of it has to do with the direction. Like they wanted to soak in the moment of Tulsa. Like I think they wanted to
Yeah,
show the violence and just the
right. Because
pure
at the same
evil of it
time that
all.
was happening over Montrose, saying
Yeah,
that's that store in town. That person lived over there on that house.
right. And I'm assuming because I didn't look into it, but I'm assuming that those are like legitimate businesses and names that they were throwing out. Like they weren't fictional. Like those are the actual. Those were some store owners and business owners and stores that were in Tulsa at the time prior to
I,
this.
I'd imagine so too, because they've done that due diligence every time.
Yeah,
They did that
like
with the Emmett Till thing. They did that with the prom thing. It being the day of prom
and it
was
getting
real.
canceled.
yeah, because I can't imagine that they would leave that stone unturned. Like I would have. I know that they probably did as much research as they could into how many businesses were burned down and if they were named and who owned them, just so they could shout them out because we need to know these things. Like this is history that we've lost, and in recent years have just begun to uncover and get more detail and shed more light into. And it always brings me back to a point. It's like, all right, so what don't we know about? Because it's highly possible there are a lot of incidents that happen not only in the United States but across the world that similar to Tulsa that we have no idea even happened because they've been almost wiped from history.
Everything's happening now.
Oh yeah, simultaneously. Like right now to in 2020 all the way to the beginning of the British Empire.
Yeah, it'll
And the
be
Roman
interesting
Empire.
now that people know about Tulsa, how willing people are to talk about the subject. Because I mean, Coop, you from freaking
Wilmington.
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yep.
Your hometown history is not unfamiliar with what
1898 race
happened.
riots. The first and only coup d'etat performed in the United States of America.
I
Hardly anyone ever talks about it. I talked about it, I think, on last episode or episode before last. Like, even in Wilmington, it's not mentioned in history. Like, when you go to when you're in school and you're learning about history and U.S. history, like, there's no course no history class that I went to in Wilmington where they talked about the 1898 race riots. It's never mentioned, never talked about, never explored. There's a monument built in its honor that I think was constructed, I want to say as in like maybe my freshman or sophomore year of high school. I think I can't remember. I got to look at the date again. When that was made, but it's like it's a secret like that they keep. And then I mean, there's a lot of things like the Hugh McCrae Park. Hugh McCrae was one of the he so Hugh McCrae was a architect and he donated a lot of land to the city of Wilmington, but he was also one of the architects of the 1898 race riots, and he has a park in his name in the city, still there to this day.
The Central Park in New York City is an example of that. There was an entire Black community living in Central Park, and people were
Seneca Village.
that they mowed it down and put a park there instead. I don't think there is a lack of Black people wanting to know that knowledge. I think there is just an abundance of people trying to not talk about it.
Yeah,
And what I fear is, especially because of this pandemic, there's a lot of people who are learning about these things because of TV. And so imagine like there's going to be a lack of good Black TV for a minute. We're going to have to rewatch a lot of old things. We're going to have to educate ourselves, but there aren't too many shows coming out for a while. And we probably won't get a Lovecraft season 2 next year.
Hey, shout out
also
HBO though for like hyping up Black women and giving them shows. There's Insecure. There's Black Lady Sketch Show. There's I May Destroy You.
But also, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just dope to see. Like, this is what it looks like when a company actually prioritizes us. They don't make a hype about it. They just be like, "Hey, yo, this is some dope content we putting out." Oh yeah, the person behind it is a dope Black woman. And we're not even selling that to you. We just showing you the greatness. And when y'all look up who did this, y'all gonna know.
I think HBO has
Oh
a history
wow.
of showing Black people. I'd say Black women in particular are getting more love now. But as far as stations go, I think we've gotten more love there than any place else.
Yeah, I agree. Not anymore. Human Cray Park has been. Thank God. I just about so that's like breaking news, but to the point. Like you know, what I'm saying like this is a
2020.
it's 2020. This happened in
That's
1898. That park is I don't know
almost
how long that mark.
125 years.
Yeah, like it's like the to like a less severe point, but Aunt Jemima changing its logo or rebranding itself. It's like it took you 125 years to figure out that shit was racist. And your whole branding campaign behind this product, you just now found this out in 2020. Like, oh, breaking news! Didn't know this was offending people.
Why do we have to be angry for change to happen? Like hiding things doesn't change anything.
Man, listen, I told you the French, the French have this figured out. They got this down packed to the science. The government don't listen unless you start burning shit. Like France, the people in France, they as soon as something happens with the government that they don't like, they immediately take to the streets and start throwing shit. Like that's what they do, and stuff gets done because you start destroying things, and all of a sudden people go like, "Oh wow, they're serious."
Hong Kong,
We got a lot of land though, and a lot of people who
It's not us perpetuate this. It's kind of like every time there's an issue with um a black person being gunned down by a police officer, like these aren't rare things that happen periodically throughout decades. Like this is a constant thing that gets talked about and complained about within the community. And eventually, like every decade or so, we reach a boiling point and we go, yo, tired of seeing this. And then we get riots. But it's not like it's an overnight thing. It doesn't happen like something bad happening. People don't automatically go and start breaking things. It's you are not listening to people when they're being rational, and then now this is you've left us with no choice but to turn to these methods.
Yeah, I think it is a fundamental problem systemically when you talk about our crime system being rooted in punishment, meaning
Like that only part.
you don't even take the time to ask somebody why they've done something, because once they've done wrong, you're like, throw them away, take away their voting rights. That 13th Amendment don't apply to them. Look the other way.
Yeah, and like that's also a part of um the danger of systemic racism and its effect that it's had over history. Because even if generations removed, once the things happen, once something has been erased from history and from like Tulsa almost was, like 1898 race riots almost were, and um many more, even generations later, when you've got a generation of white people who aren't as viral and as racist as their previous generations, the history has been wiped from them too. So they it's not like they don't even have it. They don't even know about it. So like it doesn't just affect us. It affects everyone that is a part of the history of this country and the world, really. Like when these things happen, like if they are erased from history and there's no one to remember and it's not documented anywhere, everyone loses it, and we can't afford to lose that.
Yeah, I think, which is why Lovecraft Country is important in general. The power of being able to tell a story. History doesn't always go to the victors. It goes to the people with the power to tell their story in a way. Like World War II might have been one of the first big times in history we were like empire bad because the people who were being attacked had media outlets and global reach to be like, hey, we don't like this. But we talk about in the context, if you say Roman Empire, the great normally comes in front of the Roman Empire, and we admired Chinese feudal dynasties and make movies about it. But as soon as there was a war, when like white folk were attacking other white folk, and the attacked white folk was like, "Oh, we got radio, and y'all already listened to us." They're like, "Hey, this might be a problem."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now we change how we do it. Let's go attack people that don't have that.
And I think that's also another reason fiction's powerful because it's like infiltrative. Because people who think it's just there for entertainment, you slide in Sundown Towns. The first episode, slide in Emmett Till episode 5, slide in Tulsa episode 9, where it's like, ah, you thought she was just getting a horror movie. Now a bunch of people looking up real history got you.
And that also plays into the civil rights movement because a lot the narrative leaving the United States about the civil rights movement early on, where that there were it's like a lot of dissidents and just rioters and looters. Basically, what they were saying about the Black Lives Matter, what they are saying about Black Lives Matter, and that was the narrative around the world about what was happening with the civil rights movement in the South until the media outlets went down and started recording, and then people saw that it was the police brutalizing children, really, because a lot of the people that were that were marching were like 20 some and under, like they were college age and younger. Like it was anywhere between like there were a lot of older people, of course, but like a lot of the people in the movement were like college age and younger, all the way to like middle school. And like to see like a lot of when the world saw like the police brutalizing these young people for asking for basic human rights, that changed the perspective and the perception around the world about what the US was doing and the problem here. Like that had a huge factor in the civil rights movement.
When you talk about that, I think of Nicole Hannah Jones, the journalist who did the 1619 Project. One time she was saying, we consider the civil rights movement a nonviolent movement, while in fact it was a movement that weaponized white violence for the media, doing the exact thing you said. Like, we have to stand here and do nothing while they're covering this. So when these images hit the media, they can't say we were doing
they can't
wrong.
say like because that was the news outlets in the South, the local news outlets, that's how they were portraying the violence. Like they were taking pictures and like not showing it in its fully fleshed out form. Like they were taking everything that would make their story look accurate.
News coverage.
Same
now.
thing. Like you never see with the looting and rioting, you never see the peaceful part of the protest where they are marching in peace and like there's no violence and like everyone is unified and the voice is unified. But once it gets to the mainstream media, and it's not only Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all of them show the rioting and looting and the city burning. Like it, why is this like the only thing you're showing?
Now in New York City, they never stopped since George Floyd passed, and you have not seen one on
right.
TV.
Like you're not
Ferguson
going to see
was
that
out on the streets for months. Freddie Gray in Baltimore, they protested peacefully in front of City Hall for 13 days, and it was not on the news until they broke into that CBS.
Right. Like it's performative. The liberal
Outrage.
media. Yeah, like they're like, oh, okay, this is a story, but let's show all of the violent stuff that's happening, but we're going to talk about it in a good light, and that we're not going to talk about it how they're doing it on Fox News. Like we're not going to call them criminals, we're going to call them protesters, but we're still going to show the fires. Like what?
They're just as bad.
Yeah, it's just as damaging. You're perpetuating the same image and the same visuals that the the so-called the right are, but your language and choice of words is different.
I don't know if this is the right question for us, or if maybe this is just a deeper thing I have to think about within myself. But you know, in a time where we're going through so much, I can't help but escape to fiction and fantasy and action and horror to in a way remove myself from our reality. Let me close Twitter where I can see all of the brutality. Let me turn off MSNBC where they're only feeding me crap anyway. And let me put on Lovecraft Country, or let me put on Raised by Wolves. Let me put on The Boys so that I can escape whatever is going on, even for a little bit of time. And as exciting as these universes are, and as much as I enjoy talking about them, am I hurting myself by running to them?
Only if you refuse to accept reality.
I wouldn't say that I know reality is there, but these shows are so exciting. And I don't think I realized that I was doing that until recently. Especially when like I was so stressed out, I picked up a book. I just started reading. And I won't tell y'all what I read because it was absolutely just crazy of me to choose this. But
Hey man, I realize
huh?
you gotta do what you need to for your mental health. I
That's
realize
yeah.
whenever like a month or two ago when season 2 of Trinkets came out on Netflix, I realized that like when I'm super stressed out, I binge Netflix teen dramas. I didn't even realize I was doing it until like the sixth one. Because one, I don't binge. Two, a teen dramas, and I think I pick up, but like I have watched all of like the expanding universe of Ashley Garcia in one day, all of Atypical in one day, all the Trinkets. Like I'd be stressed out. I'm like, yo, I just need to watch something to forget. Oh, what's this teenage thing on Netflix? 10 episodes later, I'm okay. Maybe not okay, but a little better than I was when I started.
All right,
Right.
so you told us that. I'm gonna tell y'all I read Twilight. I read it in the morning and I did not stop, and I finished the whole book again in a day.
Wait, you read it twice?
I reread it. I read it
Oh,
before
I thought you meant like you
twice
finished the book and
Twice
a
was
in a
like, I
day.
need to start it over.
Oh
Run that back.
man.
Gonna put it in reverse.
No.
the only reason why I didn't read the next one is I was going through it. But yeah. But I just, and I'm wondering if in a way also all of these things are a distraction. Not so much Lovecraft Country, but I don't know, maybe I might get a little Dr. Umar-ish.
It can be if you allow it to be. Like if you're using it to escape for a moment from reality, because we all need a break from what we see and what we are experiencing in life.
I'm
That's
asking if
perfectly fine.
you're made with the intention to distract us.
Yeah, fiction is supposed to be an escape. So yes, by definition, yes, it is supposed to distract you from reality because it is supposed to inspire hope. It's supposed to make you hopeful for the future and for um society that we live, no matter how bad it is outside. Like you, fiction can be used as a way to help keep you hopeful and inspired, but at the same time you cannot um completely immerse yourself in it to the point where you lose sight of the reality, and that you have to be a part of society and help build a better future.
That's
You
facts.
can use fiction to help inspire that vision and to help motivate you, but at the same time you still got to get out there and put the work in to help that become a reality.
I feel you.
I also think stories can divorce you enough from reality where it's actually helpful. Um, Another function of fiction is to give perspective on the real. And so even if you strip it down to like children's books, what children's books do is they take away a lot of complications of the world so they can focus on very real issues simply. So if you were watching like I don't know, Lion King, they pull back all the gray areas of life, and so at the end of the day, when Rafiki's like, the past can hurt, you can either learn from it or run from it. You have an easier time watching Rafiki go through that than you do in real life, than you do in more adult content when you watch Tick learn that same lesson.
Facts.
Mm.
Funny
Ooh,
monkey hits you on the head with a
I
stick.
appreciate that.
You've learned.
See, so escapism is cool, but you got to get back in the trenches. Yep.
That's facts, Mrs. Cooper.
Yeah, it's good. You got to have those outlets. You got to have those. Um, you got to have ways to create happiness, and fiction can be that. But it also has to, like, really good fiction. And for me, it has to balance. Like, it has to kind of sort of be grounded in reality and offer an alternative future that is good. And then, like, those are the types of fictional narratives that I end up liking. Yeah, sure, it can be dark. Like, it can be dark and grim, but eventually you got to get to a place where even in that space, like, the ending is better than where they started. There's got to be, like, whether it's the characters, the setting, or it's like all of it. Like, there has to be growth, and it has to lead into some sort of like positive
So
outcome.
you're not banging with 1984. I don't bang with 1984. That's okay.
1984.
That's the
I don't like
that's
it
the
when
George Orwell one where everybody's like Big Brother is watching.
Oh yeah, nah, that's cool,
Yeah,
but nah.
1984 ends where it's like, oh, this is just a day in the life of somebody who's been oppressed, and they're gonna keep pushing with the oppression.
Yeah, it's
argue that we need more like that. Everything is so much the other way around, and I feel like not every day is a good day.
Yeah, but then what's the point of telling the story? I think stories have to. It's not just an observation.
yeah.
Stories are out
Go
there
watch a
to
documentary.
tell.
Like,
They're out there to say something, and I don't know if
yeah,
this is the way the world is it's way too water is wet to me because we know how the world is because we living in it, but to imagine what the world can be or to imagine how to handle yourself in that world is something else.
yeah. And I think the successful stories in fiction do that. Like, especially the ones that draw from history, like directly, like a Lovecraft Country, where it parallels history, but then there's a balance of fictional. Like, they're balancing um, historical accuracy in fiction, and then finding a way to create an equilibrium with that, and then give us a positive outcome. Like, even though with Tick's death may not be viewed as a positive, the outcome and the adventure and, like, the future it sets up is better than the alternative, and that's kind of sort of how the show concludes. Kind of like, this had to happen in order for things to be better for tomorrow. So, like, even though um yeah, we don't get a traditional happily ever after, because I don't really like the happily ever after stories, but, like, I'm about, like, everything that we go through and everything we watch these characters go through or read these characters, read about these characters going through, it has to lead and set up a better future.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something with a bad ending that I was like, oh, that was amazing. That wasn't made into another film. I think there's exceptions like
Yeah, because
The
that's like
Empire Strikes Back is not great.
that's a cliffhanger, right? Like,
Right.
that's a cliffhanger, and you're like, but that there's a slither of hope in there. Like, Empire ends. The ending of Empire is grim in the sense
Yeah.
that the Rebel Alliance is pretty much almost defeated. Like they've taken major L's. But they still see a fighting chance. They still see a way that they can come out of this on top. They haven't given up yet. Like even though they faced some major defeats, they haven't given up, and that's what we appreciate. But at the same time, even Empire, like I say, that whole the swamp scene on Dagobah from start to finish is some of the best stuff I've seen in fiction. That Luke and Yoda teaching Luke the lessons on Dagobah were some of the best things. Like that for me makes the movie.
So, we got any more Lovecraft stuff? Because we've greatly drifted.
We have drifted. We have. We got any speculation before we close about possible season 2 or spin-off series or anything we like to see for the future? Because in my opinion, they kind of left it open-ended. They kind of left it there, the door open, cracked a little bit for more stories.
Say if they pull a Watchmen and we don't get a season 2, I won't be mad, nor will I not be surprised. 2, I think if they have one, Dee is gonna continue carrying this rage. She's gonna be angry. I don't foresee her moving positively through time like Hippolyta.
I can see that. Like, I think her arc would be interesting with her coming to accept what has happened to her and what she experienced, which I think her story honestly would be cool to see, especially throughout what we know happens in history beyond this point and how it ties into how the future and how can tie into Lovecraft Country into the story.
I think it would be fascinating. One, for primetime Emmys, I hope they get a season 2. This is a short-term thinking because to see Lovecraft Country have to stack up against I May Destroy You would suck for a limited drama series. So if they give Lovecraft Country season 2, then it'll just be new drama series. And so if HBO want to stack the Black Woman daytime or primetime Emmys, that's what they need to do. And then season 2 would be fascinating too because they also are out of source material. They've ran through and tweaked the source material, the original book. And unlike Watchmen, like Damon Lindelof was like, I don't have a good idea for season 2, so I ain't even pitch one to HBO. And Misha has been like, I got ideas, but we haven't officially been greenlit. So HBO, you know what y'all need to do.
I'd be excited to see a time jump and a recasting. As so far as like everyone is older, Dee is grown. Yeah. Letty and Tick's son is at least here, and maybe young and able to move around. Hippolyta is more mature in age. Montrose as well. I think that would be exciting to see.
So interesting thing about it being 1955 is like, and it happening over the course of a summer is like you're 10 years from Civil Rights Act signing, 12 summers from the long hot summer in which Black people rioted in a bunch of places, including Chicago. So that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, because I like the blend of racism of the period. And so like if that's I would definitely want to see that be maintained as a through line. And like if they wanted to create the Lovecraft universe and Dee be the overarching the through line between all of those stories and create spin-off stories of like George, like, does Letty stay in Chicago? Does she leave? Like, because she seems prior to this adventure, she seems to be more of a free spirit moving around to different cities. Like, does she stay in Chicago or does she leave? And
that reminds me, Shout out White Flight and the black people moving across the street from Letty's crib.
Yeah,
They
yeah, the
couldn't get Letty to
suburbs.
move out, so they moved out. Black family got in across the street. Brave thing to do. I couldn't do it myself, but Letty done did it.
Yeah, that. So, yeah, no, I would like to see. I don't know if like a true to form season 2, or like having spin-off series with these characters and then bring in other characters around our main group from this first season. I think that would be a cool thing to see, just to expand this a little bit, like go different parts of the country that are experiencing different forms of racial issues and also LGBTQ issues. Like that would be kind of cool to see. Um, just different, the cultural temperature around the country in these different time periods would be cool to see.
I want to know what time period Atticus went to when he got the book and Black people were rioting.
That too.
Like
because it seems like D is the one that gives him the book, which is also another reason why I'm very interested in her story continuing above all others, even George as well, baby George. That story continuing a little bit, but D seems to be D ended up being the most interesting character for me at the end of it all.
Because she's got the open door.
Right. So it's like, all right,
and she's pissed
I need more of this.
staying. Like that's another thing. Shout out to all the Black women creators. So they just let her stay mad through the end.
Right. Right. And I'm here for it. I was like, yeah, like let me see this. I want to see this continue.
Also, didn't realize till D couldn't draw that she's left-handed. Shout out Left Hand Legion.
Oh god. We let you have that.
It's just, I don't think I got to do this on camera for Lou. I think he came in after the joke.
Oh man, right now. I'm waiting on this Mandalorian 2 trailer to drop on YouTube so I can react to that.
Wasn't it supposed to come out at 9? They late.
Was it coming out at 9? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know these things.
Tell the people what Gumbo got going on, Coop.
Yeah. Well, do we have anything else? Are we going to close out? We are close to the hour 30 mark.
I think we're good.
Lou, you got anything you want to talk about? Let you shout outs.
Nah.
Anything you working on?
Nah, I gotta tell y'all stuff, but I can't tell the people yet.
Oh, yeah, we do need to have a board meeting. Maybe we can schedule something this week with everybody. See what everybody's schedule is.
Board meeting.
A board meeting.
That sounds so stale.
Board. Yeah, now we gotta come to the command center. Have a meeting in the command center.
Nice.
Imani, anything else? Anything you want to mention? Shout out.
1993 Bath and Beauty. Follow me on all social media platforms. I got some heat coming for y'all. I heard y'all was ashy in these streets. Shame.
Whoa.
I got something for you though.
Bro, we can't be walking around here ashy. This is unacceptable. I don't care what's going on outside in the world. It's not acceptable. Ashiness is never acceptable.
This winter is gonna be real cold, so we gotta take care now.
Facts, not fiction. So yeah, that's it. So, all right. Well, later tonight, whenever this trailer drops, I'm going to do a live reaction to it and break down to the season 2, trailer 2 for The Mandalorian. Should be some interesting story. It should be an actual story trailer this time and not like cuts and sound bites from the previous season. So looking forward to that. Wednesday night at 8 p.m. we are going, JBM and myself will be doing a recap of episode 6 of The Mandalorian. So if you've watched that series or are watching it actively and you're on episode 6, make sure you do tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear us recap the episode, give our breakdown, and give some insight into the lore and everything that's going on in that episode and the universe at the time. Then, like always, coming this Saturday, we got episode 16 of the Cookout. So definitely tune in for that. What the topic and conversations will be, we don't know yet. We'll figure that out. What's the community discussion, Imani?
We're definitely talking about demonic possession horror films. So
Absolutely. And we talked about that Saturday. So, be on your stuff, be on your game. It's October. We're doing horror themed community discussions on Saturdays for the month of October. But yeah, without ado, thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's been a blast. Hate to see Lovecraft go for now, but hopefully we can hope for a season 2 or a spinoff or something. But until next time,
peace, y'all.
peace, love, and blessings.
Peace.